This is a recording to show you what I did this past year when compiling data for teachers when they had to do a grade update. So I'd first start with the Infinite Campus spreadsheet that was for all of elementary school first grade tab, updating the homeroom grades. So I would highlight what needed to be updated, and it was an ongoing list. So by the end of the year, you can see that everything was highlighted. And then also color coding the appropriate due date for PE, health, art, and foreign language. The next thing that I would do was update the first grade report card link, which looks like this. So this has the standards that are listed in Infinite Campus on the report card, and then the data that we used throughout the year for teachers to be able to rate that standard. I would work on this spreadsheet the week before teachers were to update grades in Infinite Campus, and I would look at this with the chairs, and we would make sure we had all the data there that we had done since the last update, and then went over rubrics together to make sure that we were all in agreement before we shared it with the team, and to just go over the process to make sure that we were able to answer any questions or concerns from teachers. I provided the Flubaroo data. Again, just like the MGAs, instead of sharing the live response spreadsheet with everyone and them having difficulty, multiple teachers trying to filter by their name and forgetting to download it first, or heaven forbid making a kind of drastic errors on it that we couldn't undo. Since it was the live spreadsheet, it was just easier for me to compile that data for them. And two, they had to look at specific questions. The MGA didn't necessarily go with just one standard. Different questions went with different standards. So this made it a little easier for them and quicker for them to look at that data. So I'm going to show you how to pull together that spreadsheet. Again, it could look a little differently next year for you, since for ELA and Math you will be using Stride, and teachers may have that data for themselves. This may be something you just do for science and social studies if needed. So this is what the data report looked like that I put together for them. I chose to recreate the November one because it had two pieces of data from Flubaroo, but it didn't have too much, so that the recording wouldn't run too long. So I'm going to show you how to compile this, but this is the finished product. You can see they had 4 standards to update for ELA. For this grade update, at the time, standards 1 and 8 had the exact same data from Flubaroo, so it was easy to just combine those, but later in the year they did separate as more data was added for each of those standards. 2 for math, and then 1 for each science and social studies. So first I would regrade all of the MGAs, and in this case there was one graded ticket out the door in September, so I regraded them since we left them open for the whole year. If you are able to close the MGAs at the end of that grading window, then you won't necessarily have to do that. Since we left them open all year, every time we did a grade update I had to regrade everything in case there were students that had taken it late. So you'll want to download those spreadsheets that you need. I open up just one content at a time just so I don't get confused while the spreadsheets open. I went ahead and saved them to my desktop and added the column for student ID. Remember, you want to have student ID in column A on all your spreadsheets before you do VLOOKUP. On these spreadsheets, you'll notice that I think I unhid these. There are some columns, these right here, that are hidden. So I unhid them and made sure that I knew, okay, column O is where that first question always is, and that is column number 15. You'll need to know that column number for your VLOOKUP. So I just went ahead and put the column numbers here so that I could easily see that and not have to think about it too much as I was doing VLOOKUP. So once you have that, you want to make sure that you download the most recent Omnibus from SharePoint. Always use the most recent because of students withdrawing, new students coming in. And I've gone ahead and deleted all grades except for first grade and kindergarten. We leave kindergarten because of the above grade level students. And then I've opened up a new Excel spreadsheet, and to save time on the recording, I've gone ahead and copied and pasted from the Omnibus spreadsheet student ID, last name, first name, grade, and primary teacher. And I usually have my dual monitor pulled up with the report card link on my dual monitor, but since the recording doesn't allow me to have dual monitors, I have written on a piece of paper. So I went ahead and created the tabs that I needed and copied and pasted that Omnibus information onto all of them. So let's do the first tab. So for ELA Standards 1 and 8, they had data from the ticket out the door as well as the MGA. So I add a row so that I can put what piece of data it is they're looking at. Then here I put the question numbers, so question 3 from ticket out the door, and then questions 5 through 9 for the MGA. We won't get too fancy on this one because we'll have to copy and paste onto another spreadsheet so that the data will pull correctly. Okay, so I'm going to do VLOOKUP, equal sign, function. I already have VLOOKUP here. If you don't, you can type in VLOOKUP here and search, and then it will populate. The value we're looking up is the student ID number. So on that new spreadsheet, select column A. Click on Table Array and go to our Ticket Out the Door response spreadsheet. Click on the triangle at the top left to highlight the entire, select the entire grade spreadsheet. We're looking at questions 3 for these two standards. So if you look over here, question 3 is in column 17. And then I can double click on that little square. My VLOOKUP worked because I have numbers here. So then we're going to do the same thing for the MGA. We're looking at question 5 from the MGA. So now I'm going to look at the MGA. Let's go back. Question 5 is column 19. Question 6 is 20. Question 7 is 21. Question 8 is 22. Question 9 is 23. Okay, so now I have all of the data that they need for that particular, or those particular standards. If you remember from the MGA recording, we have to copy and paste these with the 1, 2, 3 in order for the data to populate correctly when the teachers open up the spreadsheet. So new tab, paste 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to delete that old tab so teachers don't get confused. Go ahead and rename it so you don't forget what it is. And this is where I'm going to clean it up a little bit. Make it easier to read for them. Go ahead and add the filter for that. Row 2. I always go ahead and alphabetize first name and last name. They can filter by their name. We have the kindergarten for the above grade level students. Just so that it's easier to read, I changed the NAs to DNA for did not attempt. Again, not something you have to do. I just think it makes the spreadsheet a little easier to read for the teacher, and then they know. Sometimes they get confused when they see the NA and they're like, hey, can you double check that? Does that mean they're really there? And with Flubaroo, they do enter their own student information, so we do have to double check those student IDs. If a parent does say, hey, we took it, then we double check. Or I would double check. The teacher would provide me the name and the student ID number, and I would check to see if maybe they entered the wrong ID, which happened more often than you would think. But usually that's caught during the assessment window, and teachers are sending out reminders, not necessarily at the report card, unless there's parents that only look at during report card time. Okay, and then just to clean it up a little bit, to make it easier to read, because their rubric is done by the assignment, so this kind of makes it easier. They can see the assignment by color. So that's what it ends up looking like, and I usually include a key. So I usually include a key here, and I'll say like DNA equals did not attempt. Then we'll have 0 means answered incorrectly, and 1 equals answered correctly. And then teachers use this information along with the report card link to determine, okay, for the ticket out the door, there was only 1 question, so if they got it wrong, they get a 1. If they got it right, they get a 2. And then looking at the MGA, there were 5 questions. Then it gives them a rubric here of, how to determine a 1, 2, or 3 for that particular assignment. And then they'll look across for the entire standard, to determine, okay, should the student receive a 1, 2, 3, or 4 overall for that standard for the data they have so far in Infinite Campus for that standard, because they only see 1 rating for the standard in Infinite Campus. So that's why they have their personal gradebook to keep up with each individual assignment's rating. Alright, and then you will do the same thing for each standard. So as you can see, the finished product, there's the one for ELA Standard 4. There were 2 questions from the Ticket Out the Door, and then several questions from the MGA. Just the other remaining Ticket Out the Door questions for this one. Math, MGA 1 was split between 2 standards, so you can see how that is there, and the Ticket Out the Door went with just that one particular standard. Science and Social Studies, we used it as a unit assessment, so the entire assessment was used for that particular standard, so you can see those there. When you do have the entire one, you still have to VLOOKUP question by question. There's not a way to just do all 1 through 12 at the same time. So I hope you find this helpful. This is how I pull data to help teachers update their report cards.